Aging is a part of life, a journey that each and every one of us must embark on. While society often promotes youth and vitality as the pinnacle of beauty, there is a unique elegance that comes with embracing the process of aging gracefully. Joining us in the studio today to talk about a mindful approach to aging is Dr. Cynthia West. So welcome to the studio, Dr. West.
Thank you, Wanda. Great.
I'm excited for this conversation because it affects all of us.
It does.
We're all a part of the aging process.
Can't escape it.
No, we cannot escape it. And I'm actually looking forward to aging gracefully. So,
Okay.
yeah, come a long way. But all right, at this journey in my life, I'm looking forward to aging gracefully.
Every year, every candle you blow out is yet another year of life. So I'd rather do that than not have them.
Exactly.
Right.
Good. Well, before we jump into the conversation today, you have a very diverse background.
I do.
With both internal medicine and functional medicine, which addresses the root causes of disease. You're a doctor at our Functional Health and Wellbeing Clinic here on site.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I come from pretty traditional medical background, medical training. For 25 years, I treated hypertension, chronic kidney disease, chronic disease in general. The kidneys become involved in that. A lot of intensive hospital work as well as outpatient work. So I was very much mainstream medical care for a very long time. And gradually, I started to become very frustrated over the fact that my patients, by the time they got to me, the opportunity for major reversal had passed. And I realized talking to them that they didn't really have an idea of what they could have done. And I heard a lot, by the time I was telling them that their kidneys were failing and that they were going to need dialysis, I heard a lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda. And I thought, this is absolutely tragic. That, we're in the medical world to help our patients be better, and we're not helping them get better. We're just managing their symptoms. So, that was sort of the that nagging feeling that I eventually said, I can't keep doing this in good faith. We know what to do. Mm-hmm. How come our patients don't know what to do? So that was when I started my pulling back from mainstream, not forgetting it and not utilizing it, because heaven's sakes, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. But I did change my focus a bit more towards let's get to it before it gets to us.
And that falls in line with functional medicine. And I love your passion. You brought your passion along with you when you came started here at Phoenix Contact, which we are all very grateful for, and getting an understanding of what functional medicine is. Can you briefly tell us what that's about?
Yeah, the name is very, it doesn't float well off the tongue because, for a long time in traditional medicine, when things were, quote, functional, it kind of meant they weren't real. So mainstream medicine has a very different interpretation when they hear about something that is functional. But the term was really about what was the underlying cause? What was the initial series of imbalances and disturbances that resulted in the condition or the symptoms that somebody had? So they call it root cause medicine.
Okay.
And therefore, when we often cannot give a label. People, we're used to hearing, I have high blood pressure, I have rheumatoid arthritis, I have asthma. And so we label the condition that someone has, but that doesn't explain the what is the biology that has affected this patient to end them up with this condition.
Okay. And so I love that your passion is connected with chronic disease, because that's one thing that we want to make sure that we're continuing to get that message out. Chronic disease is connected to heart disease and stroke and kidney disease, Alzheimer's, dementia. All of that plays a role in what we're hearing out there today. And the chronic disease is one of the leading causes of death and disability in the United States. And that's really what our focus is. But the thing that kind of hits home to me is it's preventable. It's all preventable.
Yeah.
So it's really starting, and that plays a part in the aging process of understanding as we go through, no matter what age we are, taking the initiative in our well-being to take care of ourselves, eating right and getting movement in and making sure we're sleeping correctly. All of that is going to help determine whether, how our life is unfolding today and in the next generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
The impact of what you do now is, it carries such weight as to how we're going to go in the future. And I think in our society still, people accept chronic disease as something that's going to happen to them.
yeah.
Yes, we're all going to die of something. But what we're really looking for is, I think the phrases that are used now in the longevity space is expanding your health span, right? So that you're healthier longer and then die fairly quickly, as opposed to this gradual downhill course of a very slow death.
Yeah.
Right. I used to say to my patients, when I would explain whatever condition, and they'd say, well, doc, got to die from something. And I said, yeah, we all are going to die from something. And wouldn't it be nice if we went to bed and didn't wake up? But that's not how most of us die.
Yeah.
We die slowly over decades and become more, deteriorated and disabled, instead of being as robust as we can be, and then having whatever that final impact is going to be come very quickly and swiftly.
Yeah. And sometimes very painfully.
Very, very painfully. Very painfully.
Yeah. Whereas taking the initial steps to eat the right foods, to get the right amount of exercise, to make sure that you're practicing self-care, you could eliminate a lot of that pain.
Absolutely.
Through those steps. So interesting statistic. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of 2023, there are 5 generations now working in the workplace. And those ages range between 16 and 75. So that's an incredible journey through the aging process of, those who are just coming into the workforce and those that have aged gracefully and are starting to look at maybe, do I continue to work or do I retire?
Sure.
So what are some of the phases that we go through from a medical standpoint? What does that look like from an aging process?
Well, when I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking about the Phoenix population because, I've cared for them myself and now with Mary Ellen and Jane. And I think about the age span that I would see. And I divided it into, I think, 3 categories, more or less. And I call the first one the forgiving phase of youth. All right. These are the guys and gals getting out of college. So the early 20s, maybe to late 20s, early 30s. Right. And, people always say, well, when I was young, I used to be able to. And you could, quote, get away with more when you were younger. That's why I call it the forgiving phase of youth. Right.
Right.
You could eat not so well or maybe not exercise quite so much, but you didn't notice that much of an impact.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing younger patients who really struggled with the transition from college to becoming an employee in the workforce. Right?
Okay.
They they retired a lot because they were used to going to bed late and not having to get up early. They were used to eating whatever they wanted and drinking whatever they wanted. And, they somehow managed to get through their next day, but they didn't have to function responsibly. So now that age group is trying to adjust from that youthful kind of college experience into kind of a more responsible adult type responsibility. So that's our younger set.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of the workforce here falls under what I call the era of survival, right? That's where there are a lot of social changes. There's marriage, there's children, a lot of career opportunity. And that's where lifestyle, I think, really, really takes a hit, right? You're just trying to survive a lot of these social changes and balance, career and what you need from that standpoint for the future, as well as socially, what you're having to balance. Kids at home, kids need to get to soccer. I don't have time to cook, and that's a lot. And gosh knows, I've been there too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to just briefly stay there for a moment, but there's a lot of you hear a lot of talk of work-life balance, and for me, I've never been able to grasp that terminology. What does that mean? Because work is a part of my life, but life is a part of my life. So I've tried in myself to say I want me balance. I want to be balanced. And we're all physically, spiritually,
right. But we're all wired a little bit differently, right. And sometimes it's very invigorating to have that career, upward mobility in career, which can sort of becomes the driver, and then the other maybe social and family responsibilities kind of take second seat to that, and you don't realize it's suffering until later, maybe.
Yeah.
So that whole work-life balance is certainly, I think, has become a more prominent concept in the last decade than it was when I was at this era of survival.
Right.
So yeah. I probably didn't have a good work-life balance.
I think we've all been there. So.
Well, yeah. And some of it's controllable and some of it isn't. So,
right.
And I think that's an important factor, I guess, where you have the decision to impact that balance. Maybe you think about how you're going to do that. Many, many times you don't have that flexibility to make those decisions. So I think a lot of the employee population here maybe falls into that era of survival. And then, towards the other end, it's, I call it rounding the bend, right? And those are more, I think, psychosocial issues at that point. You're sort of facing retirement. Physically, there are changes that are taking place. That's where we're starting to see people kind of have that chronic disease, or have that chronic disease now impact their life.
Yeah.
Truth be told, that chronic disease has been developing through all of these phases.
Yeah.
But now in this, as you've rounded the bend, that's where they become a much more predominant feature of your day-to-day.
Yes. And I've heard a lot lately in my journey where I'm at in life is, well, you're not 18 anymore.
See, and you're not in that forgiving youth.
Yeah, I'm not in the forgiving youth anymore. But, at the same time, you bring up a good point, and that's why, we talk a lot about making sure that you're getting those preventative checks. Even though, and we've all been there in the forgiving age, we're like, oh, I'm young and I don't,
that doesn't apply to me.
It doesn't apply to me, and everything feels great and I'm healthy. And, but there's a lot going on internally that doesn't always come with symptoms.
Correct.
And taking the time to have those preventative checks can help discover them if they are there in an early stage where you can deal with them, get them addressed and handle it and move on. And I think that's what has been really intriguing to me from a wellness perspective, is to know that inside is all the moving parts, and are they moving correctly? I don't know. I can't feel that. So
many chronic conditions are silent until they're not.
Right. And that's the whole reason. And in taking the time, and I think it's great that from an insurance perspective that the United States has stepped forward and said, okay, we realize that is a very big initiative, and we're going to cover those. So with the right insurance plan, having that coverage at 100%, so that you can get those tests, get those results, and continue on your journey. So yeah, it plays a big part in it.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, I want to talk a little bit about, through the aging process. What did you call the rounding the bend? Love that. We hear a lot about Alzheimer's and dementia. And according to the CDC, one of the most common types of dementia is Alzheimer's. So there is a lot of connection there. Current estimates are that 5.8 million people in the United States have this disease. And indeed,
it's 6.7.
it's expected to rise.
Well, it's high. It's high.
Right.
And that I wanted to say, those are the diagnosed cases.
Okay.
Right. So how many are pre-Alzheimer's, pre-dementia, early dementia, call it what you want,
Yeah.
that, aren't really diagnosed but would meet criteria. So even more.
How much of what we are doing in our daily lives plays an impact on that diagnosis? What we're eating and what we're doing.
So pretty much everything.
Okay.
Right. It's that whole, I don't want people to get kind of numb to the phrases.
Yeah.
But I fear sometimes that's also happens. This whole lifestyle concept is foundational. I think when I first came here in 2015, Wanda, wow. I talked at some of those introductory meetings about lifestyle being that bottom rung of the ladder that we all step over because it seems so obvious that you don't even step on that rung of the ladder when you're climbing, right? You start on the second or third rung of the ladder, right over that bottom one.
Right.
And I think lifestyle is that bottom rung of the ladder. It seems obvious and is anything but.
Yeah.
And it's those, it's definitely the 80% lifestyle dependent. There's one thing, though, about Alzheimer's that I want to make sure that we say. There is definitely a genetic component to that particular type of dementia. And that genetic test is available. And I know at the clinic, that is part of testing.
Okay.
It's almost routine.
Yep.
It's easy to get. It's not expensive. And it can give you a clue, certainly not that, okay, I have this genetic tendency, so, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to get it anyway. That it couldn't be more the opposite. Our genes don't determine our disease, right?
Yeah.
They may predispose us in some ways or another, which then sort of makes all of this eating, movement, sleeping, all of the other life stress management, lifestyle components even more important, because it's those things that are going to turn on that gene or let that gene be turned off. But in the sense of Alzheimer's specifically, this is a case of know your risk.
Yeah.
Right? If you have, members of your family that have had dementia, specifically Alzheimer's dementia, that is something that you can be tested for and know if you are in a category that needs to pay more attention to sleep or more attention to movement, whatever, wherever you may be imbalanced in that lifestyle. So that's a critical piece. I think it applies to everything, but I think if we were to poll people about what would be their biggest fear of getting older, most people say having their mind not be with them.
Yeah.
And, if we can do a test that says you aren't at higher risk, doesn't mean you can't get it, but the more informed you are, the better armed you are.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And I love that. And in talking through that, I look at my family history. We, born and raised Lancaster County, Mennonite background. So, we had dessert for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was very, very much a heavy meals and that type of thing, and no judgment there. But, I could at an early age was aware of the unhealthiness surrounding my family. And both my parents passed early in their 70s, very young. And looking back, my dad had some dementia towards the end of life. My mom's mind, sharp. I mean, she could remember details, years ago. But, when I look back, my mom was very much engaged in other activities like reading books and playing games and doing things that my dad didn't necessarily do. So, I mean, that I think plays a big role in the mind, in keeping the mind busy and active, not busy in a stressful way,
Right.
but a very active way and staying engaged. Right. Right.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned. You know, Alzheimer's disease is called type 3 diabetes.
Okay.
The impact of sugar and elevated insulin levels on the deterioration in patients predisposed to Alzheimer's is tremendous. It's called type 3 diabetes.
Huh.
So that tells you something about the importance of diet and exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been reading a book by Jackie Joyner Kersey. I've been reading her autobiography. She is a retired American track and field athlete. Tremendous book. And in there, she says, I always keep myself in a position of being a student. She's always learning. And that really stuck out to me as, wow, just don't look at age as a number. Don't even think about that. And she also says in her book, age is no barrier. It's a limitation you put on your mind. And that's why, I love hearing stories when you see about the 90-year-old individual who, graduated or went back to college, or the 70-some-year-old who, went skydiving for the first time.
Sure.
They're still learning. They're a student of life.
Yeah. And a student of life. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's something that we have to remember to be a student of.
They often say, learn a language, that kind of engagement. Anything that you can do that is brain stimulating. And you'll often, I think the very simple things are like word puzzles that people, unfortunately, give their relatives who are already showing, deterioration.
Yeah.
Here, do these word puzzles. Oh, that is not going to undo it, but the concept is there.
Right.
It just work the brains.
Yeah.
Right. You don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find it exciting that we have 5 generations currently in the workplace, because that is so much learning.
Oh, yeah.
That we benefit from. And every generation, whether you're 16, 75, 90, you have something that you can bring to the table and provide, that learning point for the rest of us. So I'm excited. I did not grow up with social media. I did not grow up with a cell phone. Our phone was in the kitchen, and if you wanted privacy, you wrapped the cord all the way down to the basement.
Absolutely, me too.
So, it's for me, it's exciting to see the generation that's coming up behind me.
Well, my daughter's teaching me to use AI, and it's like, what?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I said, I'm a little slow on the IT uptake. But even things like that, it's just nice.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the generation that's rounding the bend, oh my gosh, they have so much great stories.
So much to offer. So much to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love how it brings it all together. So there's beauty in that generation gap. So I'm excited for that.
Good.
Let's take a few minutes to talk about mental health and loneliness, because that plays a really big part, not only in the aging process, but also in the rising numbers of Alzheimer's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you familiar with the blue zones?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so blue zones are areas of the world that have the highest concentration of centenarians, so people who are in their 90s and 100s. I don't know them all, but the Okinawans are one. People in Sardinia and the south of Italy are another. Greece is another. And in this country, in Southern California, there is the Seventh-day Adventists are another group of centenarians. And there's a documentary on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's, if you put blue zones, you'd see it.
Yeah.
That kind of looked at each of these, or at least 5 of them, to see what did these groups have in common. Was it what they ate? What was it about these people? And they all ate something different. I mean, the people in Southern California were not eating what the Okinawans ate when they weren't eating what the Greeks ate.
Yeah.
So other than the fact that it was whole food, it was not processed food. It was, prepared, a heavy focus on plant, smaller amounts of meat and plant. There were kind of general similarities, but certainly not the same diet. But two of the things that really, really hit home in all of these groups were, one, maintaining a sense of purpose.
Okay.
The elderly still played a role in the social group.
Yeah.
And the sense of community, that these people always had people they could rely on. There was family, there were close friends, there was community.
Yeah.
And that is just terribly, terribly frightening in this era of social media. First of all, it makes people feel very badly about themselves if they believe what they're reading on social media.
Yeah.
And your worth is based on how many followers you have or how many likes you get. And if you don't get a lot, then you feel bad that maybe you're not good enough. I mean, that is just horrible.
Yeah.
And so this sense of purpose and community is not about your likes on Instagram or how many people follow your Facebook feed. I don't do any social media. It was way too overwhelming for me. So
Yeah.
I have nothing. But you just need a few people with whom you can connect and count on.
Yeah.
That you can talk to. It's indispensable. It's life-saving.
It absolutely is. And we are meant, regardless of, your background or where you come from, as human beings, I believe it's built into us to connect with others, whether that's one person, whether that's 500 people. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But the importance of connection is so key in, I think, helping with the aging process. Before we came into here, I was talking with another colleague, and he was sharing how he just spent time with his 104-year-old uncle. And I was like, okay, what's his secret? And he said he really doesn't have a secret, but that, he makes sure to connect with at least one person every day. So whether that's a friend of his or a neighbor, he's making sure that he's keeping that connection, because really there's not a lot of other people in his life
Exactly.
that are
Not
still
at his age.
right.
Sure.
His wife has passed away. They didn't have children.
Oh, wow.
So it's really important that we're reaching out to that. And I think it's commendable. I bring this up a lot, but I want to bring it up again. That Phoenix Contact said, we want to make sure that we partner with a mental health vendor, which we did with Lyra Health, so that employees, their dependents, have someone to talk to.
Sure.
Sometimes we just need somebody to listen, and that whether that's a coach or a friend or a pastor, reaching out to that person and saying, I just need to get this off my chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because think about how you feel when you talk through something. You're like,
It's like a weight's been lifted.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So really, really important.
Yeah.
As well.
Connection and purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah. And everyone has purpose.
Yeah.
Every single person. If you're hearing this message and you wonder, what am I here for? You are here for something, because everyone has purpose and meaning.
Absolutely.
And it's very important in your journey. So good. So any, we hear a lot about supplements and superfoods. So what are your thoughts on that with the aging process?
So I was just listened to a podcast, and I really liked what I heard, and I just tweaked it a little bit to make it my own. Because I think we overthink it a little bit, and sometimes overdo it a lot. But there were some, the podcast guest had some very simple phrases to live by, and I think it applies. It applies. It was a podcast about it more about diet and aging, but I think it encompasses all of it.
Yeah.
And I just tweaked it. So the first thing was the importance of diet as we age, and this is a whole other topic, so I'm not going there. Just take my word for it.
Yep.
The importance of protein in diet. So it was eat protein first.
Okay.
Okay. You need this for muscle, and I'm not going to get off track. So eat protein first, right? Move every day. Okay. Lift heavy things. Okay. Because you need muscle, and you only get it two ways. You have to have enough protein to build it, and you have to use it. Yeah. So lift heavy things and sleep through the night.
Yeah.
And those, what are they? 4 little phrases, I think encompass, if you really look at those critically in your life, that's a really great start to this increasing your health span.
And I love that because regardless, I mean, we're all made differently. You know, from our outward appearance, we all look different. But, regardless of whether we're male, female, what our genetics are, those are 4 things that can apply to everybody. And it would help everyone's wellness journey. So I love that.
Yeah. So it was the basis, and I said, just move every day, move your body.
Yeah. Perfect. So what, any other tips or tricks, as we approach the next chapter in our lives? Like I tell everyone, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I love that because every day is a new journey, a new chance to learn something new.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't be, I did shift, even though I stayed in medicine, it was a 180.
Yeah.
Going from what I was doing to functional medicine. I had to learn medicine from a whole different perspective. So let me tell you, that learning curve was steep. But I find it so exciting because I feel like you. Every day I'm like, oh, I read this and we could do this. And it just grows. So finding something that you can be passionate about.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be anything. You could be a pet foster. I mean, anything.
Yeah.
That brings you passion and gives you energy.
Yeah.
Because if you have that, then you're going to have that passion for the other things that are important as we age.
Yeah.
You'll take care of yourself better. But you'll connect better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm learning is don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Give yourself grace.
Yes. We're tough. We are so tough on ourselves. We beat ourselves up and we say, oh, just because this day didn't look the way that we thought it should look, we start throwing ourselves out the window. We start using words like
every day. Every day is a new day.
Yeah.
You get to start it over.
Yep.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
you get another chance.
And I love that. I'm not as hard on myself as I was years ago. Sometimes, you can catch yourself falling to that, but it's like, I just say at the end of the day, hey, friend, today didn't look the way that I wanted it to, but you know what? We got tomorrow and we're going to try again tomorrow.
We get started over tomorrow.
And I couldn't be happier. It's really a great feeling. So I encourage everyone, out there, don't be hard on yourself. You're living your life and you're doing a great
your
job.
life.
Yeah.
Not anybody else's.
Right. So quiet that inner side. Tell him to take a back seat.
You'll sleep better, have less stress.
Right. I'm glad you brought up sleep again because I do want to mention that. Why is that so hard in the aging process?
Oh, there are
especially
a lot
for some of us who are starting to round the.
Yeah, there are a lot of metabolic reasons for that, and just some reasons that go along with blowing out more birthday candles, right? We tend to not need as much sleep as we get older, but it's not so much the hours of sleep are important, but it's the quality of the sleep.
Yeah.
When you wake up in the morning, you may not remember what you dreamed, but remember if you dreamed.
Yeah.
Right? Because that sleep process is so important for brain function.
Yeah.
For kind of solidifying memories or things to remember, as well as clearing out the junk.
Yeah.
And different parts of sleep perform different functions for the brain.
Yeah.
So sleep is fundamental to brain. I've become I wear an Oura ring now, and every morning that tracks, it gives you that sleep data.
Yeah.
And I swear I wake up and probably one of the first things I do, even though I'm not supposed to look at my phone as soon as I get up, but I do. True confessions. I look at my Oura ring to see what were my sleep stages last night. And you know, and I get a little obsessive, like, if they're not, this one wasn't good. Which is a whole other problem that we just talked about. Right. But yeah, it is so critically important for brain function long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm really,
There are hormonal issues and things like that that go into changes in sleep.
right. Right. For the midlifers.
Midlifers.
Yeah. Going through those hormonal changes.
Right.
That's a fun time. Yeah, I love sleep apps. You know, when I find myself a lot of times waking up at odd hours of the night, and then all of a sudden your brain kicks in and says, "Hey, while you're up, let's talk about this, this, and this."
Right.
Then I'm putting a sleep app in, and just hearing that quiet voice or that noise, I'm back to sleep in minutes. So loving that.
Yeah. Those are so useful. And there are so many of them out there. You just have to find one that appeals to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your trick to aging? What is your secret to aging gracefully?
Oh, I don't know if I have one secret. I don't think there's one thing. We always want the one surefire thing, and I don't think there's one. I really do think it is a way to live. I think of it as kind of a retirement fund.
Yeah.
The later you start saving for retirement, the harder it's going to be and the less you're going to have when you need it. So the earlier you can make deposits into your retirement fund,
Okay.
the more you're going to have to draw from when you need it.
Yeah.
Right. And I have to say, I just finished listening today to Dr. Kara Fitzgerald, who did a study on age reversal. And the program is called Younger You. And I just finished listening to it so I can figure out how to implement it. And she was going through the part about stress and whatever. And I thought, I don't have a chance. When I think I'm done. I just might as well quit. Given, training, life, all of that.
Yeah.
But I forgot where I was going with that, but you can reverse so much, but the earlier you start, the more you plan, the more dedicated and committed you are. It isn't a one hit wonder.
Yeah.
It does have to be a way of life. Healthy isn't a goal. Yeah. Healthy is a way of life.
Yeah.
And the sooner you start that, the better off you're going to be when you're rounding the bend.
Yeah. Yeah. And every single one of us is in a learning journey.
Oh gosh.
So take each day to just embrace it. Find something new, find something to focus on, something that you love and enjoy, because at the end of the day, it is your life, and make it the best life that you can make it. It's really worth it. So if you have any questions about today's fireside chat with Dr. West, email the Wellness Committee at us-wellnesscommittee@phoenixcontact.com. Thank you. Have a great day.